Hey, I'm Will Tate, and the person I interviewed was Mark Peavy. Mark works here at the college as a security guard, but he's just a close friend of mine. He is my mentor's father-in-law, and I actually knew Mark before I really got to know my mentor, which was really cool. Really didn't know they were related, but that's besides the point. Mark has always poured into me, show me spiritual disciplines. So as I dive into his spiritual disciplines, he said reading the Bible is by far the one that is his favorite, but also keeps him rooted in faith the most. That he's able to use this and apply it into serving at church. He's able to let it saturate his spirit and really just be fruitful because of that. He's living by the word, not what culture says, but his principles are founded on the word. He also touched on, but don't forsake the gathering of the saints. That the Sunday service is very important, that we can grow more in the biblical word because of that. And he's able to take this and apply it to leadership and Bible studies, as well as being a leader on the Dream Team here at the Grandview campus. He said the one thing that he really needs to grow in is prayer, though. He said prayer is great for him, but it's not his first love. It's something that he could definitely work on. And I feel like that's for all of us, that, we always have something to work on, but the biggest thing he said is just be rooted in what you do. He really touched on that Bible reading was something he started on from a kid, and he was doing that in Sunday services and in Sunday school. That he had this Bible drill aspect of it where he was rooted in the Word. The Word was with him because he let it saturate his spirit, and he grew to love the Word. And that really went on into his 20s. He also said when you find your church and fall in love with it, you get grafted into a family. That now you're taking these principles of the biblical aspect, and now you're able to break bread, as it talks about in Acts 2:42. The breaking of bread, that you now have a family around you, the people that you love the most, and you're gonna eat with them, you're gonna drink with them, you're gonna hang out with them. He really talked about when they were in Georgia, how that family culture was really just something that kept them rooted, that they did everything with them, whether that be softball, whether that be church, of course, whether that be going to get food, that was one of their things, was they're always around church people who are growing them and who love them. And yeah, I mean, he said he grew spiritually, the most spiritual in that growth aspect when they moved to South Carolina. And he said he had to trust God because he didn't want to move, but they didn't know why they wanted to move. And he really brought up this idea that a lady from church said, well, if you don't trust what you've already done here and you can't trust what's next, and how are you supposed to become a good leader? And it really made him think, well, I'm praying about it, but many times it came back to that Bible reading, where many times in the Bible people had to leave something for greater, and they had to trust God with who was taking it over, and that takes a lot of trust. And so that story really just falls back on the biblical teaching. So he also says that when reading the Bible, the busyness of life can keep us inconsistent. Rather that be waking up early, going to bed late, all the things, school, work, whatever it is. But he says that's the enemy of excellence. The inconsistency is the enemy of excellence. And our excellence looks like discipline, whether that be waking up early or doing it late at night, having that set time where we're doing it daily in rhythm. And that's what really just kept him rooted. He said God reveals his natural ways in Scripture and has a plan for our lives. He says it's an application of grace, that church gave him a spiritual leader that made him successful in work, but as well as being a Christian leader in the secular world. It really just gave him someone to look up to while doing this, and learning that there was a family outside of that, that propels you for life when you're able to be around Christians who are, number one, following the Lord, who are seeking one another in prayer and making you better, but also reading the Bible and having that biblical foundation that grows each and every one of person, that he was able to take that step of faith to move because the people around him were sound with the Bible. They were sound with their prayer life. They were sound to the community that they were in, that they were able to say, you know what, we love you, but we see better for you, that you can move. And so with that, I'm so thankful for the conversation that we had, learning more about why we read the Bible, why why it matters, why we go to church, why the gathering the saints matters, but also that why our struggles matter. Why, if there's a spiritual discipline that we struggle with most, why it matters. And that was prayer for him, and he touched on that as earlier in the video. I touched on that, but our struggles matter, and we have to put forth our struggles so the Lord can use that, because the Lord can use our strengths. But most importantly, when we give him our weaknesses now elevate to now where our struggles are, where our power is. So we just, yes.